going on, everybody? It's David Allen here, and I am very excited to kick off some more fun podcasts that we're going to be discussing how we have been building our business and our brands, multiple companies for the last 10 years. And today's episode, this one's a really interesting one because it's expansion, and we're heavily in the middle of expanding our businesses and brand right now. And a lot of the times, how do you know when it's time to expand? When's the right time? Who do you do it with? How do you do it? So there's a lot of questions, and obviously with our industry, we're doing it the way that we want to do it. But whether it's clothing, roofing, anything, there's always that pivotal moment when it comes time to say, hey, what's the next step and how do we do this? So I'm excited to talk about that today, and we're going to kick it off here. Basically trying to give you our formula for how we've expanded, but when is the right time to expand? So this one's a fun one, Stan. And again, just because mentioning we are in the middle of the expansion, getting ready to open up Columbus here in a month or two, Nashville at the end of the year, looking at Scottsdale, looking at Tampa. So we're fully on this expansion route. You and I had a conversation yesterday, which totally threw me for a complete loop. Was you were actually motivated on the expansion fast versus the last couple of years we've talked. It was kind of like, hey, let's pump the brakes. Let's see everything unfold. Let's see everything develop and be more cautious. What made that change? Let's just dive into this right away. What made that change?
Yeah, so we didn't go into detail because talk about it live. We've been waiting for we're talking about the clothing company expansion. So waiting for enough data to kind of see what it looks like outside of this original location here in Mount Lebanon. It's a little bit of a more square footage, bigger location, slightly different operations than a standalone where you're not there necessarily every day. How many people do we need to staff it? How long until it can get up and running and sustaining itself? That's what we were looking for. So we're about 6 months into fully operations at the North Hills. The things that are pushing more towards me being a little more excited than even a few months ago was the overhead's lower than we expected. So we weren't sure with this one what things were going to look like because there's some extra stuff. This one's already covering. You kind of have economy of scale where you don't have to pay for more things, or insurance is not as expensive for adding a location than it is for just the first location. So there's some savings there. So the overhead's less. So that's one thing. So there's less risk. The time to cash flow is shorter. So it only took really 2 to 3 months before it was cash flowing itself, which was better than expected.
Yeah.
So there's shorter timeline there for it to sustain itself. And then the sales, not as good as we want them to get to, but they are decent enough with the lower overhead that it makes sense to continue to expand.
And that's like the big double-edged sword from a standpoint of, optimistically, we expected to be crushing it by now, but realistically, we covered the monthly nut in 2 months, 3 months. So the overhead's already handled, and we're in a good spot in a very short amount of time.
That's what's exciting about it. That's what makes sense we can do more. And the idea of the market is we have 2 locations in Pittsburgh doing that. If we go to a new city, it might take a little longer, but they're not going to be kind of sharing the market space with the 2 locations that currently are.
Well, and then the thought process as well. So this is where you being a business owner and business owners in general, and obviously me as well, this is where you decide to say, hey, I don't want to take the money from that business, right? I'm going to take that and we're going to reposition it and reinvest it into another location. So you have to, as a business owner, that's a decision you have to make is, am I okay with foregoing cash now or recouping my initial investment back now to fund that next location? So I think that's something that you have to figure out in your personal life as a business owner is, what are you okay with? Because if you're okay with continuing to just live your lifestyle similarly, not change much, continue to operate the way that you are, then in theory, okay, cool, you don't need the extra money anyway. And that, say you do that for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, versus going out spending all kind of money doing this, doing that, whatever, it really can change the trajectory of the future for you in a small amount of time.
Compounding, whether it's interest or your time or your money within the business, really exponentially accelerates things. So if you have that, like you're saying, reinvesting it into the business where you don't need it personally, that just gives you more options. So the idea here is the next location can start covering part of the cost to get the other one up and running. And then once the next one's up and running, those two can easily cover the cost of a third one. Then you have three, you could potentially look at two at a time. And then you'll have five, you could look at three at a time. And you're not reinvesting more of your money to do all that necessarily.
And then I believe the fun part about that is, say we get 3-4 more locations, you then could use the third location to then put money in your pocket. Fourth location now pays for the fifth location. And then you get the sixth location, and then you start rinsing and repeating this. So it's really not a long delay in you getting the money or a business owner getting the money. It's just how long does it take to get these other locations operating and producing revenue. So it's kind of it's a small window to sacrifice for a potential life-changing goal.
I talk to clients about that concept a lot, even if you're not expanding just within your current business. If you cut back on an expense for a little bit, or you sacrifice personally by not taking that money out of the company for 3 months to 6 months, that could maybe help you pay down some debt and exponentially improve your cash flow from month 7 to 12 and just set you up in a much better position. So sometimes those short-term, what feel like losses, are really just by the end of the year, you're even better off for having done it.
Why do you think it's hard for people to do that?
You get accustomed to your life. That's a good question. Like if you're doing Starbucks every morning, if you don't do that for a month, if you're doing that 30 days in a month, $10 a day, that's $300. If you do that for a whole year, that's $3,600. That's easily helping someone pay down a credit card or something that might be accruing interest. And now you have less interest. You'll have less of a cash flow payment that improves your cash flow, reduces your expenses, puts more money in your pocket.
So I'm going to talk about my mindset with stuff like that, right? So I did have to curb things a lot early on, for sure, and had to completely change the way that I lived. Now I'm at a spot where it's a little different from a standpoint of, I believe that instead of saving money, I could just make more money. And that's kind of how my mind and my brain is wired from an expansion standpoint, is like, I'm not willing to not go to Starbucks every day, right, at this stage in the game. But also it's, 10 plus years of doing this, 18 years or 16 years of trying to be an entrepreneur. So this has been a long, journey to get to the point, but we're in a spot from a financial standpoint and a success standpoint where we're past that early stage of penny pinching, and I could still live a little bit differently. So when you talk to different business owners and entrepreneurs, it's going to be case to case specific on what's your family life like? What are your travel habits? What type of vacations? What type of homes? What type of cars? What type of lifestyle are you willing to sacrifice for a bigger gain? And also, how much sacrificing have you done already? Especially in the beginning, you got to sacrifice everything. 10 years in, 15 years in, you could sacrifice differently versus the way you have to at a true startup phase.
Yeah, even in your business life cycle where you're at, you might be needing to pinch pennies because you've put so much cash into an expansion plan or something, which is not where you're at right now. But there was a time when you were aggressively paying down debt, and we had those conversations where maybe you don't need this, maybe you don't need that. Let's put that towards paying down some of that debt. And then once you were out of there, we didn't have that conversation anymore. It wasn't needed. So that's the kind of, if you do it for a little bit, it can help you out. When you're expanding, you want to think about those things. What's the cost going to be for that? Are you going to be approaching it from that penny pinching planning standpoint, or you have a lot of excess cash that you can do it the way you would want to do it without having to pinch pennies? Are you going to go to the banks for debt, which is another factor we could use when we're going to expand, because we'll have three that were self-funded, the profits and the assets in those can help secure debt for the next ones at a lower cost to us, which can help out.
It's kind of crazy, the differences in time of business, and then the different types of sacrifices you have to make throughout those times as well. And I could tell you, like, when we put that mass effort in, like, what was 500,000 in debt or something,
it was a lot, insane.
The minute we made that last payment was the greatest feeling I've ever felt, especially coming from like the beginning stage of just debt, and it's climbing, and you're taking loans off anybody you possibly would give you $1. But I just remember that paying off the last piece of debt for us in the business was life changing, because then it was like you could operate strategically without worrying about money. And to have that type of peace and freedom allows you to operate a lot cleaner and smarter and strategic. At the same time, you could take a little bit of a risk here or there as well, calculated and strategically, so it doesn't bury you. But you have positive cash flow, or now you have cash laying around where it's like, I could take this 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, whatever, and I think this opportunity makes sense. But now the debt's gone, so I'm able to do that. So it's kind of an interesting thought going into what we're trying to do. And when we started this expansion, it was a year and a half ago.
It was a year ago we signed North Hills because the rent just went up. So it was a year ago.
So, yeah. And then that kind of came out of nowhere from hey, what are we doing? We have one location. Let's just try to get the North Hills. It makes sense to have North and South Hills. They're two separate cities, essentially, the way Pittsburgh lives. But it's fun. It's fun and stressful at the same time, seeing with this Columbus expansion and the headaches. Because what we did from an expansion standpoint for the North Hills was, what did we do wrong there? And there was a lot that went wrong. And I thought we would have been a lot better for the Columbus expansion, and I think we were. But as our conversations over the last 2 weeks have kind of festered, we've realized we didn't do a lot right again.
We're learning even more things.
Yeah.
With this one around.
And this one's going to cost us money too, long term. We're delayed. We're going to be behind.
We're 2 months behind currently. Hopefully it stays there. It gets a little better.
Yeah. And that's kind of the scary part for us as well. And not scary from a I'm not worried really standpoint, more of an annoying feeling.
It slows things down. It delays Nashville. It delays finding the next location that we want to open. So yeah, it's annoying for sure.
Yeah. And again, this goes back to the team side of things that we have. We have a really good team of people that are able to focus on their tasks while we're trying to do this expansion. But we're going to also have to get pulled away from what we're doing. We now have to hire people. We're going through the interview process right now. So the time that we're committed to that is taken away from time here, or time at the North Hills, time in the closet business, time in the marketing agency. So it's such an interesting dynamic. But it's also, as much of a headache as everything is, it's also going relatively smooth, despite it not going smooth.
Right. Yeah. We're learning new things and improving processes, but they're not, at this point, we're operating in the 10% improvement area. We've got 80 to 90% working pretty well. And that's why time to expand, that's why I'm getting excited about it. So we've got lower risk on the overhead. We've got a little faster timeline. We've got no debt. And we've got the people part was the original. You've never operated a store without you being there every day. So having multiple locations, that was kind of the beta test 6 months in, still learning better ways to improve team performance, to improve the training process, but it's going pretty well. It's not like any catastrophes have happened without you being there. So that's another reason it seems time to continue to expand.
So with the whole processes thing, and I like to really share why we felt we were ready to expand and really push the pedal as much from an expansion standpoint, was for the last 3 years, maybe 4 years, our focus was process. And that was something that we've always tried to improve things since day one, but there was a stage where it was survival, just sell. We did not spend much time improving and adding processes and procedures into place. And that was a focal point for us a couple years back, was hey, if we're going to expand, because we did have this dream of expanding across the country and maybe internationally as well. But we also knew we had to have things buttoned up, because we just weren't buttoned up in any capacity whatsoever. It was kind of like the Wild West, the way that we were operating, but it was working at the time. And so for that, it was hey, just keep fighting, keep paying off debt, keep growing this, and then the rest will make sense. When I really started noticing true change in this becoming an actual business is when we implemented processes for every aspect of our business.
Down to the little things. Someone just on the team here just asked me about a certain policy we have surrounding discounts, and I kindly reminded them that all that information is stored on the iPads that are at each of the stores that they can access and see the information they need. So even something like that, adding the 2 team members to the North Hills, they asked a lot of good questions when they were first coming on that helped us develop even better processes. And that was one of the things where now we can mass push out to all of the locations, just simple documentation that to reference for who to contact about questions. We had a sheet about that because there's a few of us in the leadership roles, so they didn't always know who to ask a type of question to, whether it's about sales or pay or marketing, those types of things. Now we have a sheet where if you have a question about this, you contact David, you contact Krista, you contact Derek.
And then we use a software called Basecamp for project management software. And that's been a huge benefit as well, is even keeping all the booking links in there for North Hills location, South Hills location, passwords. I mean, everything from the foundation of our business is now housed in a central location, similar to these things that we have on the iPads in each spot. So adding that into the equation has certainly helped us from a fluidity standpoint. And hey, these answers are always going to be in this location. If you need to get them, go there, find it. Ask there before you ask Derek or Stan for something, because that becomes super annoying just to keep getting bothered by the same questions over and over again.
Having the Basecamp too for the leadership team too, because we're not all together in an office every day. You have a marketing company that Derek runs from Florida. I have an accounting company that I run separately from this, and you and Krista spend some time together, but you both have your own clients and your own responsibilities, so you're not with each other every day. So that helps us come up with, we don't need to get on a call and decide right now, let's put it into there for the next meeting. There's our agenda, things we need to do. We could keep track of stuff. We can see some transparency amongst the team without being with each other every day, so we all still know what's going on. It's a great, that or something to project manage as you expand is just a great tool to have.
Yeah, and even from a CRM system, we use Pipedrive for our CRM system. That allows me to have an aerial view of what is the team doing on a day-to-day basis. Are they making calls? I mean, we could track every text message, every cell phone, emails that go through. It's all in a centralized location on our CRM system. So what I'm doing now is, I'm spending a couple days a month where I'm just going through every single lead that comes in. Now, our process is going to have to improve and change, especially as we keep opening up multiple locations. But from a teaching standpoint, from an education standpoint, and also an understanding standpoint on what's happening within the team, our clients, our marketing spend, the softwares for that process for a CRM system has allowed us to really keep an eye on things, with us being able to travel, be on the road, not be in the shop all the time, while I could still have meetings to network and expand the business. Connect with different businesses that are going to bring us into their organization. Then I connect one of our employees at the store. They go and handle the legwork of that. But it allows me to still do the networking, handshaking, and progress the business forward.
It also lets us see leads. So even if sales aren't as good as we would like them right now, we can still see the amount of leads coming in, the amount of appointments that are booked for next month. So we can see a little bit into the future, which also makes me a little more excited about expanding sooner.
Just having more visibility over the company, essentially.
Yeah, we don't have to wait till the sale happens and then see like, okay, we're doing okay. You can see that, well, we convert this many leads. We have this many leads in the pipeline. Of those, they have to spend on average. So you can kind of come up with a rough 2 or 3 month revenue projection.
Yeah, and then it also it allows us to coach people too. And what are the teammates that are doing the best? What are they doing? What is their process? What type of responses are they having? How quickly are they communicating to leads? What type of feedback are we getting from the leads? So there's so much from an aerial standpoint and a command center standpoint that allow us to stay engaged with what's happening. So different markets expanding. What are you most excited for about the Columbus market?
So one of the things that you and Krista have been working on is going out there and building the network before we're there, meeting with people. That's kind of a way to test the geographic region, to test the market a little bit, to see, is there engagement? Is there a lot of people wearing suits? Are they excited about custom suits? Are there options there currently that are any good that we would be competing against? Or is it a need that needs to be filled in the community? So that the feedback from you guys about the engagement you're getting and the feedback you're getting from people out there being excited to come to Columbus to start with, and then you're already starting to work on Nashville, which is great. So unless you guys are pulling my chain on that one, it seems like we have some great engagement coming for Columbus. So that's exciting.
Yeah, that's the role that I love the most about where I am is going into a completely untapped market and seeing, are we good enough to get in there? And fortunately, our marketing agency has done a great job with lead gen. So I believe we can go into any market at this time and be successful enough to make a couple dollars. I genuinely believe that. But what's cool about Columbus to me is the size of Columbus versus Pittsburgh. There's a lot of really large businesses headquartered in Columbus, a little bit different than Pittsburgh. I think people care a little bit more about appearance. It's a little less blue collar than Pittsburgh is. And I think it's more future presented or future focused there. So I think there's a lot of things that are happening in the Columbus market that we just don't have in Pittsburgh. You know, it's a newer city, it's a trendier city, it's a bigger city. So I'm anxious to test our marketing skill set as well as our networking skill set to see, hey, are we going to be similar to the sales that we produce in Pittsburgh? Is this going to be way better? Is this going to be shockingly way worse? Those are the variables that I'm excited to understand and figure out, because simultaneously, as we're figuring this out about Columbus, we're also getting ahead of it now even further in Nashville and Tampa and these other cities that we're trying to go, that we have some of a foundation for, or if we don't, at least trying to get in there and unlock, you know, a couple relationships that could certainly help us. But, you know, one thing for me, anytime I go to a city, if I see cranes in the downtown area, that tells me there's activity happening, and there's telling me that there's development, there's construction going on, and that tells me that people are moving to the city or they're investing into that city. And I think that's the beautiful thing about Columbus from an expansion standpoint, is that that's happening there. And if my gut tells me those are all good things, it should help us from a revenue standpoint.
I agree. The combination of the marketing data plus you and Krista's kind of on the ground, boots on the ground canvassing of the situation gives me a lot of confidence for that one. So we just have to find the next one and get our contractors to finish up the construction, and we'll be good to go. What do you think will be, I know we're looking at Nashville after that one, what do you think would be the next potential top one or two places to explore?
I think our next biggest market needs to be Florida, but I also have a heavy interest in Charlotte area. And from a strategic standpoint, I think there's an interesting demographic there. Obviously, Charlotte's a big banking city, which is great. But where I want to tap into is the wealth that's in the Lake Norman area. You have a lot of NASCAR drivers that live in the area. Then with NASCAR, you have, you know, they're tying in with F1. They're going to be potentially getting more closely merged together or married together in some capacity, which I think is awesome. So I think there's such an opportunity in a Charlotte with a growth city. They have the Four Seasons still there. I think that's a cool vibe. You still get some cooler weather, which is friendlier for shooting in the fall, winter, springtime. You have a little bit more sun, so people seem to be a little happier. Pittsburgh's such a dreary town. You miss out on a lot of that stuff. And I believe all that plays into this. But I think we have to focus on Florida for sure from an expansion standpoint. We have so many clients there already. Where we've gotten sidetracked is dealing with all these real estate investment trusts and trying to do deals with these large national or international businesses to become tenants of theirs. I just haven't liked the experience. So from a strategic standpoint, we've been looking at how do we find a smaller but still large developer that we could actually have personal relationships and not have to deal with boards and all these other executives that are, it comes down to dollars and cents and then their processes versus everything else. And they don't want to hear what we have to say. Fortunately, we're getting bigger and bigger, so we're having a little bit more power, and people want our brand to be in their plaza because it adds value to that investment for them. But the types of opportunities in a Florida market, we just haven't really loved. Yeah. And that's made it very challenging for us.
We went through a few different leases at this point down there in a couple different cities, and we ended up walking away from both of them.
Yeah, so. I think the Florida market's great. It's growing. I mean, the no state income tax or whatever for Florida is a huge thing. So, you know, the weather, you know, why wouldn't you want to go to somewhere where it's beautiful all the time, essentially? Obviously, it gets a little hot in the summertime, but 8 months out of the year, it's pretty fantastic in the scheme of things. And being in custom clothing, you have people that care about their appearance a little bit more in a warm weather climate. From what I see, there's more healthy food options. There's more fast food that is actually healthy from an option standpoint. There's, more opportunity to be outside from a fitness standpoint. So people tend to take care of themselves a little bit differently in a Florida market. So those are all things that, I think are interesting. Where we'll end up next, I don't really know the answer. I mean, Nashville is kind of the one that I'm really hot on, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think Scottsdale has a nice presence for us, all over Florida, Charlotte. And I do at some point want to test the Northeast from a Boston standpoint. New York, I'm not really sure I want to be in New York from a business standpoint. I don't know if it really intrigues me too much, but I'm just curious about, maybe Connecticut. There's some areas there of pockets of extreme wealth. And what's going to also dictate the future for us is, how does Columbus go? Yep. How does Nashville go? If one of these locations pops off and goes crazy for us, it allows us to maybe do 2 locations at the same time. And then we could play around and see what makes the most sense from that standpoint. So I'm anxious to see what happens. I don't know what to expect. Very optimistic on everything that we do, but I believe Columbus is going to be the start of something amazing for us. And, that's starting in 2 months for us, or 3 months, which is kind of crazy.
Built by doing. That's what we're working on.
Yeah, we'll continue to figure all this stuff out. And, we're in the process right now of doing some interviews in the Columbus market. So I turned on the advertising on Indeed to try to get all these resumes. And that's been a headache, filtering through some of the quality of resumes. Everybody applies to everything essentially, which is fine. And I understand that. But filtering to find the right people that mirror who we are in Pittsburgh, and keeping the culture and the community and the thought process behind the core of who we are at David Allen Clothing is something that's really, really important. And the further we get away from Pittsburgh, the more important those decisions have to be, to make sure the integrity of who we are as a brand doesn't sway to a different direction, because that could essentially hurt us pretty aggressively. And, one bad apple, again, that we've talked about before, could do a lot of damage to a company, especially in a growth mode.
The people was the other test that you're talking about that we were exploring with the North Hills. You're still there from time to time, but you're not there every day. So or do we have a good process for identifying, finding those types of people? And that test so far has been really good. We have good 2 people up at the North Hills. We have good 2 people here at Lebo, plus some extra people to help out here and there. So the team here, that's one of the factors to look at when you're expanding, is your professional team, your personal team. Is everything relatively squared away where they can manage with less of your time because you're going to be more focused on other areas? So that's what has been working well so far.
And a lot of that, though, was built because of the processes we put in place. By us having better processes and procedures, it has allowed us to understand, to test new employees, to see how good they are, to give them as much support as they possibly could have, especially going into a completely new role, a new opportunity for them. So they're in a completely different world. I mean, Caitlin, worked as a server at a restaurant. Ben sold shoes at Nordstrom. So it's like they didn't have experience in what we're doing. So the sharper our processes became, the better we could train good people first and foremost, because that's what we look for. I in a perfect world, I'd love to have somebody with a background in fashion, more importantly, men's suiting and custom suiting, but we've not gone that route with anybody because we like training within. We like finding the right people first, and then if we find the right people, we believe we can train them and coach them to deliver the message of David Allen Clothing to what we believe from an experience standpoint. But that doesn't happen without processes. So again, going back to those people that are thinking about when is it the right time to expand, processes are probably one of the most important thing. People, obviously, because they have to implement, but you can't have people be successful without processes.
No, we talk about that all the time. Is this a thing we're going to build a process for? Or is this a thing we're going to train our people for? Or a little bit of both. But if you're trying to expand, you need processes because you're not going to be there. So the processes keep it together. So
yeah, and that's where I think the processes have truly changed the dynamics of our business and the direction of everything we have. And from a business owner standpoint, and anybody listening, the more processes, you don't want to be overloaded with processes, because sometimes you duplicate things. Sometimes you're adding more work that doesn't need to be there. Then you take away from the true grit of what is your business and how do you get those sales to come through the door. But if you don't have the simple processes in place, it's only going to hinder growth. And, that could be as simple as, what does it look like when you open the door, come into your shop every day or your business every day? How do you greet people that come into the business and the shop every day? What's the service like when the sale or transaction's over? How do you follow up? What's the post-sale, pre-sale? All those things are part of the process. And then when your product comes in to be sorted out or steamed or prepped, what is the process from the time the delivery arrives to having it steamed, put on a hanger, labeling it for which sales rep it goes to? We have boxes in the back that every garment that comes in goes strategically into whatever sales rep's package that is. So it's like there's so much that we're doing that eliminates thought, and it becomes streamlined, which allows us to kind of help grow and continue to come to fruition from a success standpoint. So we're going to dive into a lot more from an expansion standpoint, because this is where we are. We're fully in a heavy expansion with the business and brand. We're going to have more episodes on this. This was one we wanted to just do kind of a light touch to kind of go over everything. But when it comes to it, people, processes, procedure, all those things are super important if you're going to be successful, especially if you want to actually work on your business and not in your business. You need to have the ability to oversee things. You need to be away from your shops or your office or whatever it is, and have eyeballs on everything, so you can have at the moment's notice go into any report, any process, procedure to see what's happening. Because if there's something where it's not going smooth, you need to be able to pull that right away. So this is always a fun one. We're going to continue to talk about expansion. We're heavily involved in this. So if you have questions on expansion, processes, procedures, any of this stuff, or any topics in general, shoot us a DM, email us, text us, call us, whatever it is. But we want to give more back to business owners from a question standpoint and a process standpoint.